Welcome to the sine and cosine rules. This is part 5 in the derivative rules series that's going to help you knock out derivatives. These two rules are really simple, but sometimes you can easily kind of get them mixed up, even though they're really simple. So these are ones you definitely want to work on memorizing if you don't already have a cheat sheet or something like that. All right, but here they are. It's actually really cool rules. So the derivative with respect to x of the function sine of x is cosine of x. Yeah, you didn't hear me wrong. The derivative of the function sine is cosine. Done. Lickety split. Here's where there's a little bit of an issue, though. The derivative of the function cosine of x is negative sine of x. So most kids remember, oh, they're opposites. The derivative of sine is cosine. The derivative of cosine is sine. But you got to be careful with cosine because the derivative of cosine is not sine. It's negative sine. So you just got to be careful that you don't get that wrong because some kids will put the negative on, they'll forget the negative altogether, or they'll put the negative on the sine formula, not the cosine formula. So you just kind of have to remember that, take a little bit of time, have a cheat sheet maybe. I don't know what your teacher allows, but make sure you remember these rules. Not too bad other than that. All right, so here we go. Here is a function, g of x equals 4 times cosine of x. Now first, I'm going to understand that the 4 is a constant multiplier. What do we do with constant multipliers? We just leave them out in front when we find the derivative. So here we go. The derivative of this function is, just leave that constant multiplier out in front. The derivative of cosine we just talked about is negative sine of x. Therefore, my final answer is negative 4 sine of x. There it is. So the 4 stayed out in front. It's a constant multiplier rule. Derivative of cosine is negative sine. 4 times that negative makes a negative 4. You're done. The derivative with respect to x of 4 cosine of x is negative 4 sine of x. Easy, easy, easy. All right, here's another one. And again, understand that this is really just a constant multiplier, negative 3 times sine of x. And when you're finding derivatives, f prime of x, what do you do with the constant multiplier? Just leave it there. And what's the derivative of sine? Cosine of x. Nice and easy. So therefore, my final answer is negative 3 sine of x. Very simple. The derivative with respect to x of negative 3 sine of x is equal to negative 3. I wrote that wrong. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Hopefully you were screaming at your computer screen there. I wrote cosine of x here and then I changed it. I'm so sorry. That's a cosine of x right there. So negative 3 cosine of x. All right, here's another one. Again, I'm not trying to pull any tricks here. The negative 1/3 is another constant multiplier times cosine of x. That step isn't needed. I'm just trying to emphasize that the negative 1/3 is just a constant multiplier. So y prime is going to be negative 1/3 times the derivative of cosine, negative sine of x. And again, this is where we say, wait a minute. I got two negatives now. Negative 1/3 times that negative sine is going to be a positive 1/3 sine of x. That's it. There's my derivative. How unbelievably simple is that? All right, here's another one. This one now I'm going to incorporate a lot of rules. So I have the addition. Well, the sum formulas tells us that all you got to do is take the derivative of the first and add the derivative of the second. So I'm literally just find the two derivatives, add them together. This is so easy. All right, so g of x prime, the derivative. Well, for the power rule right here, all I got to do is, and I'm going to use the constant multiplier rule because 2 is just a constant multiplier. So the 2 is already there. The 3 falls down in front, x to the second power. 3 minus 1 is 2. Now, what am I going to do with those coefficients? I'm going to multiply them, of course. Just give me a second. Hold on. Add 5. 5 is just a constant multiplier. The derivative of cosine is negative sine of x. Don't forget that rule. All right, so I'm just going to clean this up. I got 2 times 3 is 6, x squared minus 5 times sine of x for my final answer for the derivative. Again, 5 times the negative sine made the negative 5 sine of x. Easy, easy, easy. All right, here is the final problem of this video. And again, all we're going to ask you to do is understand that like we're just subtracting two functions, this function minus this function right here. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of algebra first. This first function I'm going to write as a power function, so I could use the power rule. So I have 3/2 as a constant multiplier, x to the negative 1/2. Square root of x is a 1/2 power, but it's in the denominator. I don't want it in the denominator, so I'm going to move it up with the negative exponent, minus 2 sine of x. So here I go. Finding the derivative, I got to use the power rule. 3/2 times the negative 1/2 that falls down, My new power is negative 3/2. Negative 1/2 minus 1 is negative 3/2. Hopefully you got that. Minus 2 is just a constant multiplier. The derivative of sine is cosine of x. And now I just got to clean this up. So I have negative 3/4. But I don't like negative exponents, so I'm going to move the x to the positive 3/2 to the denominator, minus 2 cosine of x. Now listen, that's not the ugliest function, or that's not the prettiest function I've ever seen. In fact, it's kind of quite ugly, but who cares? I found the derivative. Now let's end this video by quickly reminding you, what is a derivative? It is a formula to find the rate of change at any point you want on this function. So if I want to find the rate of change when x equals 0.6, right? All I got to do is plug 0.6 into the derivative, and I will get the rate of change, aka the slope, at x value of 0.6. How do I find the corresponding y value? Well, that's what functions are for. Take that x, plug it back into this original function, and you'll get your y value. But again, just don't forget what a derivative is for. So who cares if it's not the prettiest looking derivative in the world? It can still be used for what we need it to be used for, and that is finding rates of change at any given point. So for the trig rules of sine and cosine, just remember, derivative of sine is cosine, derivative of cosine is negative sine. That's it. Hopefully you learned how easy the sine and cosine rules can be.